you, Chair.
Okay. No, it's fine. The minister's apology is noted. And let's then. So we have these three items basically. It's the consideration of our 4-term program. We look at the midterm review of the SANDF, and I'm happy the Deputy Minister is in the meeting. He will guide the discussion as well there. Do we call it a midterm review of the South African Defence Force?
Good evening, Chair. Yes, this is in terms of Rule 120D. This was presented last term to members, and the members requested time for further input. So this is just a report from the Joint Standing Committee of Defence to the two houses of Parliament, providing them with a review of the South African National Defence Force. So it's an internal committee process. Okay,
no, it's fine. No, and then the next item is the consideration of the draft report on our attendance to the ADD, to the Africa Aerospace and Defense Industry Exhibition. And then we adopt the minutes, consider and adopt the minutes. Right? May I request that you flight the program, Nandipa? Right. Okay, colleagues, this is the program for consideration. Today is the 13th. We're meeting to consider those items above. And next week, it's a briefing by the SANDF on current border safeguarding operations, including challenges and successes. Briefing by the SANDF on border safeguarding technology usage and shortcomings in this regard. Briefing by the SANDF on the cooperation with the Border Management Agency and the impact of the agency on its functions. Basically, the meeting is looking at the border control. I'm not quite certain if this would include the sea line as well, but it doesn't look like it includes the sea line. Maybe we'll have to look at that as well at some point. I'm raising this in the context of 4 marine surveillance per annum. And how much Correct. Of that is, we can call it a proper protection or defense of the territorial integrity of the Republic. I don't know, we have not looked at that as a committee. And what does this for?
But Chairperson, we must look at that, because
recording in progress.
Even if you look at the Border Management Authority, they will have to, be present at official points of entry, which are harbors. So it is most certainly it's a all inclusive. It should be like that. If we are only talking about land borders, that might be one thing, but we have to talk about maritime borders and safeguarding that as well, because that has been neglected incredibly. And even if it's just to address that, but we cannot look at border safeguarding without looking at maritime as well. I fully agree with you in that regard.
Okay. No, it's fine. We'll get back to it. Then on the 27th of October, so we're proposing a closed meeting to discuss the prime mission equipment, including an update on the Air Force aircraft serviceability. Colleagues will recall that this matter was, we were briefed on it by, I think, by AMSCO at some point. And so we know the status then. And the AMSCO has since what you call renewed contracts that remained an issue then. So we just need to get an update on that and how has that assisted them in bringing more aircraft into the serviceability level. And then on the third is a briefing by Ncicc, the National Defense Industry Council, on the outcomes of the Lekgotla 2022 and steps taken to support the defense industry. And then briefing by the AMD on the industry's challenges and opportunities, including feedback on cooperation with the Ncicc. And then feedback from the AMD on the uptake and of and training on the Ncicc electronic permit application. And basically, the third week would be is dedicated to the discussion on the defense industry as a whole. And then on the 10th and the 24th, and we take the briefing on the Ncicc third quarter and then we look at the Ncicc feedback on matters raised by the defense industry on the meeting the previous week. So their response, and then we move to the 24th. It's a briefing by the DOD and the Department of Transport on the SA National Maritime Security Strategy, and a briefing by the Navy on its envisaged role in the context of national maritime security strategy and requirements to fulfill such functions. And then lastly is a briefing by SAMS on their patient load, cost of outsourcing, and their general ability to provide a medical service to serving members, military veterans, and of course, other VVIPs. And then we do the minutes, and then we look at the study talk. So those are the matters. Colleagues, let's go back to the beginning and then have a discussion on it.
Chairperson, can I just request what has happened to the 17th of November? The initial draft that was sent to us had a 17th November as well, and I don't see anything on the 17th here.
What has happened? I remember we had that discussion. Nandi, what was the issue, by the way?
On that week, Chair, the NCOP is taking Parliament to the people. So they wouldn't approve the committee to sit on that day because of that taking Parliament.
Okay. Okay, accepted. Thank you.
That's accepted. Okay, so that's the only limitation. And all right, colleagues, let's look at all the issues. Check if we are okay with all of them.
Chairperson, can I just ask on the 27th of October, that closed session meeting, will that be a virtual closed session meeting? So in other words, we will meet as usual?
Let's meet in Cape Town, all of us, on the 27th of October, but that if we all agree, so we'll close the chapter.
Just remember, just remember that afternoon is oral questions to Peace and Security Cluster as well.
Yes, and it may actually overlap.
Yeah, so if it is, you know, that we do that in Cape Town and we do that after the plenary of the oral questions, no problem. But I've just picked that up, that we don't have a situation of, you know, that the two clashes with each other.
Okay. Okay. I think we can, it's going to be possible if we are all in Cape Town.
Yeah.
We may even
Okay.
delay the start of the meeting if the question session overlaps into our starting time.
Okay. Chairperson, given that it will be a closed session meeting, and given the information that we have lately seen in various press and media articles and stuff, is it not possible that we can get a feedback on our deployments, and specifically Cabo Delgado, and the challenges that they might experience, and if there are new logistical issues and new developments in Cabo Delgado? I mean, that's a typical subject for a closed session meeting.
I mean, the Deputy Minister of Defense will guide us. I know that he will say, look, this is the committee's meeting to decide its program, and we want not to comment, but I'm sure on this one, I grant him permission to just say whether it is proper to, it's just that I don't know what the situation is like in Cabo Delgado, whether it is proper to discuss it, how sensitive the matters are, I don't know.
Well, maybe as long as we wait for the Deputy Minister to come on, obviously it is our responsibility. It is part of our oversight. That's partly why we went into DRC, you know, to visit and experience the problems and challenges that they've had at the time in the DRC. So this is certainly not something for an open meeting, is my opinion, but it's certainly something for a closed session meeting, because clearly it seems like they're experiencing some challenges, and they might need our support in that regard, logistical and otherwise.
Yes. Yes. Okay. No. Let's. So that's a proposal. Let's look at all the issues, colleagues. Comment, Alec. My platform doesn't show me the hands. Oh, comment, Coach.
Yeah. Thanks, Chairperson. My reception is real bad.
Yes, you said you would
just come back now. I was just thinking on this matter.
Lost him.
Yeah, you have disappeared.
Hello?
You have disappeared. Oh, okay, you're back now.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Now I was saying that if it's doable, then let us get the reports on our deployment in Mozambique and Congo and other places, so that at least we know what's the morale of the soldiers. You know, like Honorable Marais just said. But I think those would be important things to do. But of course, it has to be made a closed session. And even if it's a closed session, the department will know what to report and what not to report.
You are right.
I guess so, but I think it's necessary to get that
So it's Cabo Delgado, DRC, and the Mozambican channel. Those three.
Yeah, I think everywhere where we have our soldiers deployed, we need to know what is the state of affairs. Okay. I guess so, yeah. Right. Just in addition to that, if it's doable.
Okay, that is for the 27th of October. But I think you're making a good point that we leave it to the department. They will decide what they are comfortable to brief us about, and leave out that which they think is not covered, but we leave it to them. We are open. Yes, Mr. Raider.
Good evening, Chair and colleagues. Thank you very much. Yeah, so just to endorse what Mr. Murray and Mr. Chabaleng are saying, I think I'm in full agreement. I disagree a little bit with what you're saying because, as Mr. Murray pointed out, and I pointed out on our WhatsApp group the other day, is that this falls squarely in our mandate, and we need to know. So the department must tell us whatever we want to know. Sorry, I note my internet connection is unstable. The department needs to tell us exactly what we want to know. So yeah, that really is my first point, is to come out and support and to say that we really need an update. It certainly falls within our mandate to hear what's happening with our troops there, and we have the right. In fact, we've got the duty to ask those questions. That is my first point, Chair. My second point is that the NCOP has a very full program coming up over the next couple of weeks, next two months, in fact. And we're certainly going to find ourselves busy with a number of debates on Thursday afternoons. And there are a couple of clashes. Now, I do understand that clashes are part of being a member of parliament. And one always needs to prioritize. But I do think it is pertinent to alert the committee that there will be times when members of the NCOP might not be able to join precisely at 6 p.m. in the evening due to plenary duties that may take priority. One would hope that with our colleagues in the NCOP, we could share the duties and perhaps prioritize the Defence Committee, but I don't think that is always entirely possible. Chair, my final point, if I can ask whoever's sharing the screen to move on to the next screen, onto the next page, and we can look at the program of the 24th of November. It's moving quite slowly on my side, certainly. Chair, what we have there for the 24th of November is a briefing by the South African Navy on its envisioned role in the context of the National Maritime Security Strategy. And I was wondering if we could include in that perhaps a similar update to the one that's being given by the Air Force in terms of the serviceability of their fleet at the same time as they are presenting that. I'm not sure if that is already included. It's not explicitly stated, but I would hope that we'd get an update from them, because the last time they presented to us, they did warn us that if they didn't get sufficient budget, they would have to start cannibalizing some of the existing fleet in order to keep a small amount available. Thank you, Chair.
We've got that, Mr. Ryder. Let me just check if this satisfies you. Can you go back? I can't remember what date is that. We do have something. Just go back. Just go back a bit. Yeah, just hold. We're taking it on the 27th when we take a briefing on the status of the prime mission equipment, including an update on the SAA Air Force aircraft serviceability. You think that is not adequately covered there?
Chair, I'm just wondering if we'll get an update from the Navy as well.
Or from the Navy as well?
Yeah. Well, we must, because it's part of our prime mission equipment.
It's part of the prime mission equipment, yes.
Yeah.
And unless we want to okay, and well, how do you phrase it? Because I thought prime mission equipment was broad.
Chair, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, then let me repeat this. I thought when you say prime mission equipment, we actually
Oh.
refer to all prime mission equipment.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we are then saying the report must also include an update on the serviceability of the what you call the SAA aircraft fleet.
Chairperson, I think that part, including an update, is actually additional information because per definition, it should be included in at least the first part. So prime mission equipment should be aircraft, should be naval vessels, should be radar, communication stuff, should be special forces equipment, should be whatever, should be part of that. So that second part is actually just I wouldn't say unnecessary add-on, but I mean that Air Force serviceability is part of prime mission equipment, but I think there's a special emphasis that we are putting because of all these problems that we've had with the Gripens and with so many of them. But we have got similar problems with the frigates and the submarines as well. So yeah, that's very important.
Okay. Right. And colleagues, any other? I just want to check if on the 20th, we should not merge the first two bullets into one, and briefing by the SANDF on current border safeguarding operations, including challenges and success, and leave it at that and remove bullet 2 because it's incorporated, in my view, within the first briefing, or will be incorporated within the first, within bullet 1.
Chairperson, I think personally, if we think broadly about it, yes. However, we know what happened this week, yesterday, in fact, when we had the presentation on by the CJ Ops on how they have used the money for technology for border safeguarding. So therefore, I think we must specifically mention that. Because that must be part of the challenges and the shortcomings in that regard. If that is included, if we make sure that they understand that is regarding technology usage and shortcomings, then yes, then that is also something additional. So
okay,
but it must be part of that.
It must be part of it. Okay. All right. Maybe leaving it as a standalone is it's more to make an emphasis.
Yeah.
That you will also want the presentation to focus on the force multiplier.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Okay. So any other comment, colleagues?
Chairperson, then just on the next page, I think that is what you referred to, that letter of mine. That will now be on the 10th, where we are dealing with the AMD. I think that's on the previous page, and the Ncicc third quarter report. Just firstly on that third quarter report, oh, that's on the third. Sorry, my apologies, on the 3rd. During our meeting of our visit at the Air Force Base Waterkloof, we have experienced a number of people, especially the bigger guys like Milcor and Hensoldt and Saab, that has indicated to us that there are challenges with regards to export permits. It is also included in our report, the AAD attendance report. There are, in terms of observations and recommendations, it is included in there. And subsequent to that, one of the biggest exporters, I approached them, talked about these things, and then they said to me that they are experiencing serious problems lately again since second quarter of this year. So the information that I then received, I've shared with you, and I have asked you whether we can either invite the big guys. I know that AMD will give us a presentation, but because we know that if you look at the membership of AMD, It is normally the majority of them deals in some B category products in terms of the Act, but then C, D, E up till G products are they. So that's the least lethal products, if I can use that phrase. But the bigger exporters and manufacturers, they deal with predominantly category A, all the category A exports, in fact, and then some of the category B exports. Now we know that they've only one representative in the AMD. So obviously they're experiencing challenges. They've given us information, and I passed that on to you as well. I shared that with you. And I was wondering whether we can invite them. You know, obviously we must look at their challenges. We have given that commitment, I think, to Milkcore and to SAP and some of the others. I think Henselt as well, when we in Pretoria, that we will look at their challenges. And this is part of how we can help them and assist them to make the industry stronger and for them to access more markets. We know that it seems like from the feedback is there are specific problems with category A, as I've said, and some category B export permits to specific countries. And it seems like it's a repetition of what happened in 2020 and 2021. And I was just suggesting to you that we must ask them either to make a presentation directly to the committee. You know, maybe we can consider inviting them. Alternatively, that we communicate with them and request them to make it via AMD or on an individual basis directly to the committee. I think the latter one is sometimes not that practical. I don't want to have a situation where AMD is not properly represented, but on the other side, they also not, being able to give us the proper picture that we have to deal with. And eventually people will look at us and at the Ncicc and say that politicians are not doing their job. So that was my request and suggestion to you. And I've put that in a letter and an explanatory note afterwards. So because they are certainly experiencing challenges. There's no doubt about that. There was just too many of them that has given us that information in Pretoria and afterwards. So that is basically my request and suggestion to you.
Look, Mr. Marais, I've not received any correspondence from them. So if they did, only you were favored with that information from them. One and two, I would caution against us going directly to individual members of the AMB. Yeah, for one reason, Mr. Marais, I think we'll be accused if we will be accused. It's such an industry. I would want us to have an arm's length relationship with as in our capacities as in our capacity as members of parliament. And you'll understand it. I mean, there's a history to it, dating back to the what you call the strategic acquisition. So if I don't want us, because we may end up being caught up in wrong places.
Can I make an idea is also, because it's in our report. So in other words, if it's in our report as we're going to adopt it, it's anyway, in our official domain. Is it not possible that we write to AMD and say that, during our visit in Pretoria and in, because the communication didn't come from them on their initiative, I approached some of them, to find out whether there are still challenges and all that. And tell AMD that there seems to be exporters of especially category A and B products as defined in the Act, whether they can interact with their members exporting those products and make that part of their presentation back to us. If we do that, then we know that we have taken cognizance of their challenges. We have communicated with AMD, and then it's between them and AMD to bring that information back to the committee in a formal session that we have on the 3rd. Is that not another way of accommodating their concerns?
You see, Mr. Murray, they've not spoken with, they've not corresponded with us formally, so that we look at what is it that they are expressing as their concern. You see, I don't know what relationship you have with them. So I don't want us.
No personal relationship.
No. Just answer to this. I don't want the committee to be drawn into private discussions, as it were.
No.
Because for one reason, I'm trying to protect the committee, and that if we are mindful, we may actually end up being caught up on the wrong side of the fence. Hence, hence for our own protection, we must maintain this arm's length relationship with the industry.
I understand.
It's good that they have this umbrella body that we communicate with, and we've actually expressed that they have our support, because you see, because the survival of the SANDF rests with them, you know, and so it is in that context. And one and two, for the growth of our economy, you know, job creation and the industrialization, we need to support them. But the question is, how far do we come closer to the industry? It's a matter that we should actually tread carefully on. That's my caution. But if they want, if they write to us and say, look, Chair, we have this particular problem, right? And we want, when you meet with the ADM, place it on the table. We have raised it with the ADM, we have raised it with the Ncicc, and we don't see them to be taking it seriously. You see, so that we don't appear to be doing a bidding for individual companies.
No, it must not be for individual companies. It must never be for individual. What is good for the one must be good for the other.
Correct.
So it is not about individual companies at all.
We stand for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Must be an industry thing. It's not an individual company. So I'm not interested in that at all. But if you look at our report that we will have to adopt just after this on AAD, third bullet of our observations as the committee, and the fourth bullet of the recommendations by the committee. So if you look at that recommendations by the committee, people might say, now, so what? What do we do with that information? Do we not communicate that with the AMD, or do we just leave it hanging in the air? And this is precisely, I think, where it fits in, is because it was already raised in an official capacity during our visits at Air Force Base Waterkloof, and it is in our report of that visit, and it's part of our recommendations. So I just don't want to have a report where we make recommendations, but we are keeping, you know, the so-called arm length from the industry and actually doing nothing about that. So even if we send this report then to AMD and say, please have a look at our recommendations, and please, you know, we will ask you when you made your presentation, we will ask you about that specific recommendations of ours, because this is an official document.
No. We are yet to adopt the report. Let's not preempt it now. We'll look at the report, check whether we are satisfied with what is contained therein, and then later decide what then do we do with it. But I hear you exactly. Mr. Chabaleng, is your hand still up? It's a legacy hand. All right, Mr. Mare, the best thing, I think the best way forward.
I was saying that.
Hello?
Coach,
Yes.
I was talking and I didn't realize that I was muted.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so they're making a follow-up on the points raised by Honorable Mare, particularly with the kind of messages that he receives from entities linked to the AMD and, of course, the whole defense industry. That, there are lots of competing interest in the defense industry. And I've also gotten lots of complaints from people, particularly Africa or Black people who are involved in the industry, and they're actually feeling that they're being discriminated against or they're being disadvantaged. And my saying to them was that, no, if we have anything that we want to raise it with the right to the portfolio committee and or the joint standing committee on defense. Those are the only two bodies in parliament we could write to, and or write a petition to the Speaker of Parliament. Attach all your documents in terms of what you requested and you were not answered and all those. So I won't be able to raise that on your behalf. And since then, the people hasn't coming back to me. But I'm just saying that then I cannot come into this meeting and say, I have a request from Mr. Skosana, who is involved in this industry, and they feel that they haven't gotten any contracts since they started. So yeah, I think if we are to do that and raise issues on behalf of sectors and or individual companies, then we'll have to do it for everybody. So then, which means the committee or the joint standing committee will become an adjudication. We'll have to end up playing an adjudication role on who gets what and who doesn't get what, and that is not our mandate. I was saying that if people have issues they want to raise, they can write directly to the committee. Thanks, Chairperson.
And on those bases, we'll assess whether what they are bringing before us is really a matter that must receive our attention as a committee. I fear, because there are many role players there in that industry, and mind you, they also compete amongst themselves. All right, and so there is competition. Now, if you enter into a space where people are competing, and you are seen to be on the side of one or two or three, and you may also be accused.
And there are also raised issues, Chairperson. Sorry.
Yes.
I said there are also raised issues in the industry.
Yes. It's yeah, Mr. Mare, I think let's agree that we yes, as the industry in general, and we support it, and but would not appear to be creating a platform for one competitor or two or three, because we'll be accused by those that would not be able to meet. And unless we want to invite a multiplicity of letters for individual members now wanting to interact with the committee directly, it's the last thing I would want to see actually happening. I think there's a danger, Mr. Mare, if we're to speak to, but if they write to us, we'll look at it and then decide whether it merits our attention. If it does, we'll look at it, but of course within the confines and the parameters that we're determining. Ourselves.
I mean, as I said, I mean, I don't speak to just one company. I mean, it's part of my oversight responsibility. I speak to defense, the whole in defense industry, and only in the cases where I think it's valid and it's justified, I will raise it with you. and I've raised it with you guys first. But however, you know, I've done my duty. I've reported it. Remember, this is a challenge now. It's not something for next year. It's already happening since the second quarter of this year. So if it is an individual company, then I mean, I will anyway ask AMD about this. It is my duty, it's information that I've got. I will anyway ask them about that. So if they are then not prepared for the answer, or they are a bit of an embarrassed in the situation, then obviously it's up to them. You know, I will obviously do that on the 3rd and the 10th. So
no, it's fine.
So yeah,
no, it's fine. No, it's fine. Mr. Marais, you are free to raise whatever issues that you come across with as a member of parliament. But if you want the committee to raise the issues, would want the people themselves to write to us and express what is it that they're complaining about, whether they have raised that with the responsible bodies, and if yes, what was the response, and why they are not satisfied with the response, and then we'll take it up from there. And so, no, it's fine, colleagues. I'm happy that we are saying, Mr. Marais, you are welcome to tell them to write to us. And if they want us as a committee to raise a matter officially with the AMD, but you are free to raise it as a member of the committee at any time. When there's Ncicc before us, AMD, or even the Ncicc. All right, we'll leave it at that for now until we hear further action on their part. All right, colleagues, here we are. I don't know if you have looked at this. Can we then adopt it as our working program for the remainder of the term?
Chairperson, I will propose for the adoption. Just one question.
Chairperson.
Yes, sir. Okay, before
I just want to say, because you know, I've also received lots of letters and complaints from people, so that when I engage with them, I'll engage with them in my individual capacity as a member of the committee, and that I should not in any way purport to be representing the committee in my communication with them.
Oh yes.
I think that is
Absolutely.
what I'll do, so that I don't bring everybody
correct
into things that don't necessarily. We've got a mandate as a committee. We've got a mandate as a committee, and we've got a mandate also as members of parliament to play oversight role, and all those things
Correct.
have limitations here and there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes. No, you are right. You know what? You are reminding of one thing, Mr. Marais. I was embarrassed at the exhibition center on Saturday when only you were introduced and at the function by the announcer there. For the whole public to know that there is Mr. Marais, not just a member of parliament, a shadow minister, shadow defense minister. And
it was embarrassing to me as well.
Yeah, can I finish it?
Yeah, sure.
Here we are in a function at the invitation of AMSCO, and it's a committee. It's led by the chair, and for some reason you find yourself. I know you met with these people individually. You have visited some of the what do you call these things? This what they call them? These cubicles. Their stations. You visited their stations, and you met and spoke with them, and
their business sites.
Exactly. And now, I thought it was, in my view, mischievous on the part of them, For me, it was like you're actually promoting DA and not the Democratic Alliance.
Yeah,
Now,
no.
when you are there as part of the committee, would prefer that they respect the committee, because we are not there as ANC. Mafanya is EFF and so on.
Right.
Mafanya, what is this that these people are saying now? You know, and there was a deputy minister there, and there was also a minister of defense and other senior people that I had not heard them mentioning, announcing their presence, but only you. I'm saying this thing ruffle the relationships, and I hope they will not do it.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing to me as well. I mean, the guy just wanted to meet me. I was blown away when I heard that he mentioned my name. In fact, it was embarrassing to me because that was not the intention, and I had absolutely zero control over that. So in fact, I mean, I didn't even heard when he started to say that, and somebody tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Listen, what he's saying." So I'm totally, you know, it was embarrassing to me as well, because that's not the place. So just to let you know about that, that was not masterminded by me at all whatsoever.
Okay, no, that's fine. Let's leave it at that.
But you know, I mean, you know, on a lighter note, I you know, I can't help if I'm popular, you know.
Well, come again.
I can't help if I'm popular.
All right. Well, okay. We'll leave it at that. We're not going to debate it, but I was talking as an issue of principle.
Yeah, no,
because
I fully understand, and I fully understand.
Yes,
I mean,
because I will also go to events where I am also popular. All right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean,
okay, that's fine.
It was a surprise and an embarrassment.
Let's leave it at that for now. Okay, that we're all embarrassed by it. Okay. Okay, so colleagues.
You are muted, Chair.
My apologies, Mr. Murray. Any other discussion, comment on the program before we adopt it?
No, I will propose. Oh, just the one question. I know Mr. Chabalenge has also mentioned that I know we haven't got the time in this term for a visit to maybe our soldiers in the DRC. However, I know that Mr. Chabalenge has mentioned that in our WhatsApp group, and maybe we must just make a note of that. So, you know, next year maybe to consider that when we might pay the oversight visit, and maybe consider Mozambique as well, Cabo Delgado. So there's not place in this quarter for this. So in that regard, I propose for the acceptance.
All right. Okay. It's fine. We'll look at it next year, but it's here when we are preparing for elections. Some of us may not be available, but anyway, it's worth considering it. All right, colleagues.
It's
so we are,
elections is only 2024, sir.
No. Elections, but the
campaign starts. We start next year.
Who's that?
Matsamai.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. Okay, colleagues, the program is accepted, and for the term. Let's quickly look at the presentation. We've spent 15 minutes on this. We're not doing well. The first presentation.
Chair, I'll just share my screen for the mid-year review. Is it visible on your side?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, thank you, Chair and members. In the interest of time, this report at our last meeting in the previous term, we went through this report with members, we presented it, and there was a valid request from members for more time.
Sorry, can you broaden it? I think make it 100%. Yes, there it is.
Is it better, Chair?
It's much better.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as I was saying in the previous term, we presented this report to members, and there was a valid request from members for us to allow for more time for members to actually work through the report and provide additional input. So in the interest of time, I won't go through the whole report. Again, suffice to say that this report, as a reminder, this report is in terms of Joint Rule 120D that requires the Joint Standing Committee of Defence to conduct a strategic review of the SANDF midterm in the life of the particular parliament, which is where we are now, and then submit recommendations to both houses on its transformation, integrity, equity, morale, and defence readiness. So the parliamentary rules require this committee to report on those 5 issues. And so in the report, as members will recall, we looked at transformation issues, and also specifically what the committees have looked at, for example, career management, personnel management, defence career management in general. We looked at integration, which was the second one, and also again, that the process is closed, but the committee looked at, for example, at the Khoisan Nation self-defense units integration pleas. Thirdly, we looked at issues related to equity, and specifically personnel statistics of the many years that this committee has been active, and do a comparison of those personnel statistics, and noting that MST intakes may detract from the progress that was made over the years. The fourth requirement from the joint rules is around morale. We looked at morale specifically in terms of the interim Defence Force Service Commission and the Defence Force Service Commission, but this is one of the aspects that the committee hasn't really dug into very deeply, and it's possibly a focus area for the coming 2 years of this committee's life. And lastly, one of the issues that the committee, I think, has done particularly well in is to look at issues around defence readiness. So the rule requires us to report on defence readiness, and here we looked at a number of issues, basically laying it out chronologically, saying that there seems to be an increased reliance on the SANDF in South Africa, but the committee has noted a stagnating defence budget. The committee has also noted increasing misalignment of defence expenditure, specifically the over-expenditure on compensation of employees. And because there's no money or there's too much spending on compensation of employees, there's less money for prime mission equipment's maintenance and the purchasing of new prime mission equipment. So that has a negative effect, and that also results in reduced training on these prime mission equipment. We went through a number of observations in this regard based on the aspects here. And Chair, maybe I'll just highlight the recommendations again that members can consider. These are proposed recommendations. I really want to highlight this. These are proposed recommendations, and it's really open from our side for members to make their input and really make this the report your own as members of Parliament. But based on the observations that we've seen the committee deal with over the past 2 years, and in terms of the requirements of the rule, the following recommendations are made. Also to note, members, please note that this is recommendations to the Houses of Parliament, not to the department per se, but to the Houses of Parliament on the status of the SANDF on those 5 aspects. And firstly, the Joint Standing Committee on Defence makes the following undertakings to the Houses of Parliament in terms of Rule 120D. First, the Joint Standing Committee on Defence will request the DOT to explain the population figures in the annual reports for 2018-19 and 2020-21, as it is unlikely that these figures could change so dramatically in comparison to previous years. There's probably some misstatements in these annual reports, and for the committee to fully report of this at the end of its lifetime, it will be good to have the actual corrected figures from the department. The committee then will request a specific update on integration-related issues, especially given the comment that the issue is time-bound and likely to lapse. The JSCD will also request the DoD to provide specific statistics on the representation of former military structures in the DoD. That's to address the integration matter. And then lastly, the Joint Standing Committee of Defence will engage the DoD and other relevant structures on the status of morale in the Defence Force. So that's something that, for example, we can include in upcoming planning for the next year as it relates to the central mandate of this committee. Furthermore, the Houses of Parliament, and this is the recommendation from the committee, proposed recommendation. The Houses of Parliament should consider a formal recommendation on the DoD to the DoD to enhance its efforts to address representativity regarding both race and gender. It is further suggested that a gender desk be established to further assist affected SANDF members with regard to, for instance, sexual exploitation and abuse cases. The gender desk should be accountable, among others, to Parliament through its defence committees. So that is one proposed recommendation to the Houses. Another proposed recommendation is that the House of Parliament should encourage the SANDF to increase its efforts to keep the force broadly representative of the people of South Africa, specifically through its intake of young South Africans, and that the SANDF should continue to report to the Houses on this matter through the Joint Standing Committee of Defence. And then the last recommendation on the status, it's similar to a recommendation made by the committee in its oversight report of last year, about a year ago. Both Houses of Parliament should consider an urgent debate and possible House resolutions on the status of the SANDF, with specific focus on 4 aspects that relates to the observations of the things that this committee has been dealing with. Firstly, it basically raises the questions, the desired roles and functions of the SANDF. Secondly, the appropriate funding of the SANDF to fulfill these desired roles and functions. Thirdly, the reduced level of force readiness of the SANDF, specifically as it relates to the conventional role. And lastly, the medium to long-term acquisition and maintenance of prime mission equipment to meet this force's conventional operational requirement. This last recommendation, Chair and members, is just a repeat of a previous recommendation, but I think it portrays the urgency with which the committee has observed that there is a decline in the defence readiness posture of the SANDF, specifically in terms of its conventional role. But Chair, I submit, I'll keep the document open here, and this is the report for members to consider and for members to provide input and make it your own. So I submit, and I'll go with your guidance and make the required changes. Thank you very much.
Sorry, can you, I just wanted this A, B, C, and D, this recommendation, right? That's a recommendation I'm looking, no, just go up this one. No, the one above, no, the one up, the above ones, right? This one. And the
One.
Yes, you see, I'm looking at this and I'm actually asking myself, what is stopping us from getting this information now? You see, I'm saying it's one matter that it is not that should ordinarily be part of what we do every day. Going through the annual report, looking at the representativity of the SANDF and in terms of gender, race, etc., and plus also in terms of former military structures. I mean, if we get this information, it's a fact. I mean, JSD will request DoD to provide specific statistics on the representation of former military structures in the DoD. And I mean, if I'm asked a question, what do you mean by representation? It's one thing to say that the people from the TPVC, Transkei are so many, Ciskei are so many, Botswana are so many, and Venda are so many, and the former SADF are so many. That does not really talk to the representativity. It's just what you call an accident of history that we've the new dispensation inherited them. And I mean, how do you want us to deal with this one? I'm trying to understand this, FLM.
Chairperson, also, if I can add just
Yes.
to that, is that remember we are now over 30 years since integration. So many of the members from all those previous structures, statutory and non-statutory, are now retired and are not there. So I am not so sure in terms of how relevant that is. Even those people from the old SACC who was talking about integration. I mean, they are so old at this stage, and with the greatest of respect against anybody, that I'm not quite sure whether that is still relevant, that specific point. So yeah, I was also wondering about that point.
Yes, except, yes, who's that? There's someone who wants to comment?
No, Chair, I just wanted to respond.
Yes.
I think the initial thinking behind it was simply this. If you go back in the report, it clearly states that the integration process has been terminated and concluded, and that it is not a factor really anymore. I think the inclusion of this point was merely for the committee to comply with or to show that it is still complying with the requirements of the rule, and to maybe give the statistics at the end of the legacy report of this committee. I do agree with you that it's not a very relevant issue anymore, and the rule is based on the mandate of this committee, which stems from 1993, when this was obviously a much more important matter at that stage. So I would be happy to amend this or take it out as members wish. It is not a make or break type of recommendation in this report.
No, yes, especially because we are now talking about the remnants. I'm not too sure if it is the right term to use. The remaining, the surviving, but let me say, the very few that still remain.
It might not be the right.
It might not be the right word.
It might not be the right word, but the facts is still the same.
It's still the same, yes. The very few that are still remaining, from all bodies, both from the statutory and non-statutory. In actual fact, now our focus should be turning on the people who were recruited from 1994.
Exactly.
How representative is our SANDF in terms of marketing it and getting young people of all colors, to join the SANDF. But there again, it's the thing is demand driven. Until people themselves say, here we are, and we apply, and but we tend away, from the Indian community, white community, colored, and etc. The issue doesn't arise, because I'm saying it's demand driven. It doesn't arise, and also what if it makes it an issue at the moment is because we're not recruiting. The MSDS is not what it would have been considered as a feeder, from the bottom. Are we really? Are we still recruiting? That's a question. Are we still recruiting as a new member?
Yes, Chair. We're doing recruiting every 2 years of roughly around 2,000 members every 2 years. So on average,
you mean the MSDS?
Yes, Chair.
But the MSDS is I mean, how many of the MSDS is retained, is absorbed into the military? Maybe those are the figures.
The permanent force into the regular force.
Into the regular force, yes. Maybe are those figures that we need to require, and the extent to which the MSDS is helping the SANDF to rejuvenate, to feed from the bottom.
Absolutely. That's very, very important, because the MSDS program is a contract for 2 years or whatever the period is, and then they are out. That doesn't mean that
Exactly.
they will be absorbed into the defense force and in the regular force. Not at all.
I
And
think
that is what you are referring to.
Yeah, exactly. It's the conceptualization of the MSDS itself, how it assists the SANDF to rejuvenate. But the DM is in the meeting. Maybe he can assist and on this one.
Chair, did you want me to come in right away?
Please do, Poti. We're just discussing this issue. Yes.
No, I concur with the observation that point C in the recommendations 1C is actually serving no purpose, because even when I initially thought that there was a confusion about what is being referred to, but now with the clarification provided of what these former military structures is in reference to, I don't think that the Sixth Parliament should be, unduly or overly concerned about that as if it is a big problem. For the reasons that you have advanced, the Chair and Honorable Murray, to say that the military organizations that integrated, that population we started off with, the bulk of it has exited, and what is left is exiting. And so it is not a headache. But the important aspect in relation to the composition of our defense force is 1A, where it says we must look at the racial composition of our defense force. And that's what I understand in that reference to population figures, that the Joint Standing Committee on Defense should request the DOD to explain the racial composition or population figures in the annual reports of 2019 and 2021. Because the take there is that those statistics may not have changed much. And indeed, it is something that Parliament must be, cited about. Who actually do we have in our defense force as far as our citizens are concerned? I think that is the one that I will go with. But I agree that 1C, if my opinion was of any significance, I would agree that it be expunged. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you so much. And,
Chair,
yes.
If I can just mention, I agree with the Deputy Minister, but we must maybe not refer to race, because we must rather refer to demographics, because that will be gender, that will be age, that will be race.
Okay.
So those three things are very important. And then in terms of B, which also refers to integration-related issues. So in the same sense, I don't know whether that is still so relevant to talk about the integration-related issues. That is B and C actually, are working together in certain aspects. So if we take out C, we must take out B. And then in terms of A, we must refer to demographics, because that is very important.
I agree that we take out B as well, add demographics, and then we take out B. In fact, our focus nowadays must be, must be on the what you call recruitment and retention strategy of the department of the SANDF, because really we want people to join the SANDF.
Absolutely.
And in their numbers, but how they go about it, and I'm not too sure. I'm only aware of this MSDS with all its shortcomings, but I don't think it fully addresses the question of rejuvenation. You know, and yes, maybe that is it. But there's other point that they raised. I can't remember that they were also training young people they were recruiting from universities as well. And who remembers that, which they was mentioned in our symposium? I can't remember.
Chair, that is the reserve force. They had a program. It's not active currently. It's called the university. I forgot the name. It's the University Reserve Force recruitment program, where they actually recruited specifically for the reserve force from universities. It was a very good program, but I think last time they reported it is not active currently.
So we don't want to build that one in this, because I found it to be I don't know, nowadays it's actually receding. Yet when it was conceptualized, it was a good project, because that was actually emphasizing on people with recruiting graduates with scarce skills, instead of bringing them into the SANDF and then redirecting them to those scarce skills, to acquire the scarce skills. We were going to recruiting them from the universities and to populate our reserve force. I thought it was a good thing. They moved away from it. I don't understand, but I think it was an oversight on the part of the department. But we must get information on it. Right. Any other thing that we want to?
Yes. Chairperson, can I go back to 4.2 on page 4, please?
4.2.
On page 4. I think it's probably just a typo on my side, but I just want to make sure whether 4.2 says the white paper, but I think I think it must say the white paper. 4.2, the white paper, right? And the other one was 7.3.1. I was just wondering, and you can assist me, where we talk about the increased reliance on the Defence Force. We know that where we have budgeted for operations, and those budgets were approved, that's no problem. There should be the money for that. Our biggest problem has come up when we have unbudgeted deployments, like Notlela and Prosper, and then also now to Mozambique. Those are unbudgeted, unprovided, and unfunded to a certain extent. I was wondering whether we cannot add in that where we refer to these being unfunded and unbudgeted, because that's the real problem. It's not the budgeted problems and the planned deployments, is those unbudgeted and unprovided, which is actually putting the pressure on that. I know that with Prosper we received a certain amount of money in a medium-term budget additional, but which was not nearly. I think it was about 1.5 billion, still short of the total cost of the KwaZulu-Natal uprising costs. And I was just wondering whether we cannot add something like that, that these are unbudgeted and unfunded deployments.
See, Mr. Mare, let's. Can't we wait until we receive that report that we asked for? On reconciliation of what was received and what was spent, and and just to check if there's any what you call a shortfall in the what you call money from Treasury. I'm raising this point because we have not looked at it that way, where we say for this deployment we received so much, and so much was spent on it. Okay, and then the balance is a shortfall or a surplus. So only now we'll be taking that presentation.
See, the only thing that is referring to is, for instance, Prosper, where we receive money, and it refers to DRC, where we receive refunds versus costs. But where we, for instance, to Cabo Delgado was not provided for at all, and for other domestic deployments like Noklela was not provided for, and we never got any money for that either. So it is not about specific projects or deployments, but it's the principle rather than you know.
Let me read you a statement that I picked up from the budget papers of National Treasury. You see, they say participation in peace support operations, and they will say, as part of its efforts to ensure peace and stability in Africa, the department expects to continue participating in peace support operations in the DRC under the auspices of the United Nations Stabilization Mission. To this end, the department intends to deploy an infantry battalion supported by RUOFAC and Oryx helicopters. The department also expects to continue its deployment of 4 military observers as part of the UN mission in Sudan's Darfur region. And then it says 3.2 billion rand over the midterm is allocated in the force employment program for activities related to peace support operations. And then it goes on safeguarding South Africa's borders and territorial integrity. It's the statement, the Treasury papers say, border security remains a key priority for the South African National Defense Force, especially for the country's land and sea borders. Accordingly, over the EMTF period, the department plans to deploy 15 landwards subunits to patrol 4,471 kilometers of South Africa's land borders with Zimbabwe, Eswatini, Mozambique, Lesotho, Botswana. Then they go on to say 3.7 billion rand is allocated over the MTF period ahead for land border control in the forced employment. And then they also talk about money given to Navy. They say provision is made in the Maritime Defense Program over the MTF period to finalize the acquisition of a new hydrographic survey vessels at an estimated cost of 2.1 billion rand. So all I'm saying that in the estimates of expenditure, these monies are actually itemized as to what is what allocated for what purpose.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
all what we expecting from the department is to come back to us and say, no man, the 3.2 billion rand that is mentioned in the estimates of expenditure is wholly inadequate. And we are saying for these reasons. I'm not too sure if when Treasury allocates this 3.2 to be allocated to the forced employment program, it ends up in the forced employment program. It's not being utilized for other
Correct.
things. So we're
Correct.
not
You are 100% correct.
To track whether the money allocated is being used for the purpose for which it is being given to SANDF, to the department.
I fully agree with you on
this is the thing
that
that we need to look at as a portfolio committee, in my view.
Yeah, I support you 100% that we have to look at that, and that must be included as well. I support you 100%. My concern was just for those deployment, even outside of that we haven't received money, that they say use your own budget, and then we know what happened in the past. They took away from training, they took away from this, they took away from that to be able to fund that, and that has just caused the deterioration in the defense capability to go much faster. So my concern was, and I've said it in the meetings a number of times, that whenever there's a deployment other than what is provided for in the budget and approved, like you have read now, then there should be additional funds. I know that America and many other countries work where a deployment is taking place. They don't provide detail, but they pass a specific a budget for that additional budget, not from existing budget, from additional budget. So I've just identified that is one of a huge impact that it's making on the viability of the defense force. So that was more my point where I was coming from.
Okay, maybe we must say that the committee, where we say the committee will request DOT to brief us on A, B, C, and D, that we must also ask them to brief us on the funding, to all the ordered commitments. I don't know how you want to put it, but it does appear to me that there is all these ordered commitments have funding for it, but we're not too sure whether the money it's used for the purpose for which it's been allocated to us, or it finds its way to subsidizing other programs. All right. So yes, I'm saying
so
this point is trying to cover you, Mr. in a way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for that one. The other thing that is actually relating to that is in our observations. I'll just look at that, and if you look at 8.5 and 0.6, it's actually dealing with the same issues without mentioning it. In 5, I've just said to myself, those are mostly without additional funding, that specific observation. There's additional support, Notlela and all of that has happened. And then in 6, it is also those increasing operational demands. Those are also unbudgeted increased operational demands. If it is funded operational demands, no problem, but we know that is not the case. Then in terms of point 10, I know that, and it's more question maybe to Wilhelm, who is more the expert. When we talk about the decreasing availability of prime mission equipment, I've just said to myself, and inadequate logistical support, because logistical support might not be part of prime mission equipment, but there is inadequate logistical support, maybe as a consequence of the prime mission equipment, but it might also be a funding issue. So that was my one point. And then in terms, the 2 points that I have, that I want to make additional is, okay, I've done that. And then on point 9, for C, where it says the reduced level of force readiness of the Defence Force, specifically as it relates to conventional role. And I have just thought to myself that we must add there, and its constitutional mandate, because that conventional role and that reduced readiness, we must also compare with what is in the Constitution in terms of what the Defence Force is expecting, the Constitution is expecting from the Defence Force to do. And we haven't even, really referred to that. And then the last point was just that the medium to long-term acquisitions and maintenance of prime mission equipment and logistical support to meet the force conventional operational requirement. Because there's a lot of logistical issues that we have picked up over time that has crept in. So those was just the consideration.
To fulfill its constitutional mandate.
Mandate, yeah, mandate. Not requirements, mandate.
Yes, you sorry, I interrupted you, Mr. Murray.
No. I said those are just the points that I have picked up when I went through the report.
Okay, Mr. Reiter, your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. My apologies for the slight delay. Chair, an issue that I have that I feel is not addressed appropriately. Well, okay, so first of all, perhaps I can start at the beginning. You did point out you were a little bit surprised at the name of the document, and it's actually the midterm review, not the mid-year review. It says in various places mid-year, but I think that's just in the naming of the document, not in the document itself. So that's the first thing. The second thing, Chair, is that I've had a look at the joint rules of Parliament, and the copy I have only has 120 A, B, and C. So I haven't seen, I haven't had the luxury of looking at Rule 120D, which is the one that we're quoting and relying on here. It would be nice if we could see that, just to place this report in a little bit of context. My final point, Chair, relates to the actual content of the document, and specifically, I think that one of the things that we've observed consistently is that the organigram of the Defence Force, the Department of Defence's organizational structure, is currently unfunded, and there's been a disjuncture between Treasury and the department, whereby we have for years sat in this position where the staff structure is not funded. And I wonder if there shouldn't be an observation to that effect, and then a recommendation which says that we should encourage Treasury and the Department of Defense to sit together. And I think it's something we've discussed on various occasions before, Chair, and I've taken the liberty of just drafting very roughly a couple of paragraphs, but one for the observation and one for the recommendation, to this effect. And I wonder if the committee would consider including that. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, no, it's fine.
I have placed those comments in the chat. Sorry, Chair, I beg your pardon.
Okay, just send it to Velem. Sorry, we'll see how we incorporate it. After which a final draft will then be presented for adoption. We're not going to adopt it today. Next week we'll adopt it. Right, colleagues, are there any further comments on the report? At least now it gives all of us an idea of where we are going. And
Chairperson, the only other thing is it is a magnificent report again. Well done to Wilhelm and the staff.
Yeah, it is
fantastic.
Because it consolidates all our discussions on the variety of topics. Yeah.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Absolutely great work.
Thank you so much. All right, so Velem, we can then withdraw this one for now. Please, colleagues. Yes, DM.
Chairperson, can I just come in for a brief moment?
Please do so.
Before you step down on this one, if I may. I have, Chair, made a few notes on what the report contains. And I'm very much mindful, Chair, that actually we are in a terrain that we do not belong to. It is not our meeting. It is the meeting of the committee members. But I assumed that the invitation was the goodwill of the committee to say we are going to put out this document in Parliament. If there is any view you want to express the sentiments of the ministry on, or if there's any view we feel is not or can be better articulated, we should do so. It is with that understanding that I want to just make a few observations and a few notes. And I'll start with the observations. Chair, I won't be long. Under observations, there are editorial issues. I do fully understand what the drafter of the document is saying. It's not like I do not understand, but it is only that the way some of the points are crafted, they are open to interpretations that may not be what the writer intended to communicate. Point 5, under observations. The document says the committee observes an increased reliance on the SANDF for both internal deployments in support of SAPS and other government departments, in addition to its external conventional peacekeeping. My point here is that very much in keeping with the comments that yourself and Mr. Murray were making earlier on, internal deployment in support of SAPS and other government departments, it may be COPTA, under which at the present moment disaster management is located, is a constitutional responsibility of the South African National Defence Force. So when we comment about it, it should not be that we suggest in our tone that this increased internal deployment is problematic. No, it is constitutional. The point, however, I feel we should, in focusing Parliament on this, to indicate that in relation to these very increasing deployments in support of SAPS and other departments of government, we are not at the level of readiness in terms of our capability and capacity to realize our constitutional responsibility. And in that, with respect to what I am raising, Chair, I am having in mind the challenges that the South African National Defence Force encountered last year in its intervention to support the police, but even now as we speak, the systems that we have, whether you're talking transportation and other equipment that the South African National Defence Force can do this work professionally, is not available. Similarly, the intervention in relation to assisting government when natural disasters occur, we are coming into that in those interventions as what we are not expected to be responsible for, and therefore can only do what we can make do with. And in my view, we should accept that the well-being and security of citizens is increasingly being challenged by other factors over and above the usual military threat that is our responsibility to protect them against. The issues around climate change and the regularity of disasters, it's something which the South African National Defence Force must be more competent to deal with and be better equipped to deal with than it is the case now. And Parliament must be aware that they must release monies in order to have the Defence Force acquire latest technologies that can be used in dealing with disasters. The other point is in relation to point 6. The draft says the committee acknowledges the stagnating defense budget allocation. And that stagnation, I think it was meant to say we acknowledge the decreasing defense budget allocation. It's not stagnating as we all agree. It is actually declining. So it is just an editorial point. On point 8 says the committee notes that the reduced defense allocation impacts negatively on the domestic defense industry. I'm just uneasy with the point that we should say the well-being and growth of South Africa's defense industry is dependent on us increasing the military budget of the country, because this is what is implied there, that in order to deal with this decline of the domestic defense industry, we must address the allocation that the defense force is receiving. And the actual approach to the problem that we all have supported does not support that assumption. Because yes, we want the South African defense industry to be humming and providing all kinds of systems that we need at any given time. But to keep these enterprises functioning optimally and thriving and developing new technologies does not have to rely on the domestic budget. And that is why we are promoting the South African defense enterprises to have their wares displayed to the global markets so that they can sell what they produce, and to make sure for ourselves that when we need, we'll always find these companies able to come to our needs. The last point under observations is 11. It is also just a drafting thing. It's an editorial point to say the committee notes decreasing training efforts, specifically around prime mission equipment in the South African Air Force and the Navy. I think a point was made to say the challenge to having soldiers that are proficient in all the masterings that they are expected to be in command of cuts across the entire services of the Defense Force, the Navy, the Air Force, the Land Force, the military, the medical services. It cuts across. And the point that I actually want to raise is that in relation to the reserve forces, the cut in the budget is actually making training a very crucial problem at the moment, because you are talking about a surge that you want to exercise not by utilizing unfit and ill-prepared soldiers as a country, because that is irresponsible to throw into the battle, into the theater of war, citizens that are actually not sufficiently prepared. But with the cuts on the man days that we've been talking about and the reduction of call-up man days for the reserve forces, we will unavoidably end up with a situation where we call up the reserves, today, and tomorrow they are in the battlefield without the necessary preparations having been adequately done. So this issue about the training, how it is affected by the the reductions in our budgets, I think we should put it in the very broad terms so that it covers us in all, at all angles and not just in relation to the Air Force and the Navy. I also agree with the Honorable Mare, Chair, that the last point, and that's what you have also, commented on. We must talk about the conventional role. The committee concludes that the level of defense readiness of the SANDF, specifically as it relates to its constitutional mandate, continues to deteriorate because its readiness is not only questionable in relation to its conventional military role, but also in the other roles that I referred to earlier on. Lastly, Chair, when it comes to the recommendations of the committee, just 2 points that I thought I should touch on. The first one is that point 2, there is a proposal there on point 2 that the gender desk should be accountable, among others, to Parliament through its defense committees. Of course, Parliament works through through committees. So all what it says is that the gender desk that must be established within the SANDF to deal with this problem of sexual exploitation and abuse must report to Parliament. I hold a view that would be from an administrative point and for no other reason. An extraordinary arrangement and may actually not be easy to implement, that you have a desk or a division or a branch within a department that reports directly to Parliament. But I leave that to the wisdom of the committee to look into it. I do support the recommendation at the bottom, recommendation 4, which says we must have an urgent debate and possible House resolutions on the state of our defense force. I fully support that because the observations under on page 17, those 12 recommendations, observations, do not have each one of them any recommendations. But you can see that the recommendations actually are going to come from what has been identified as the focal point of the debate that Parliament should have. With that said, Chair, I submit.
Good. Thank you very much, DM. You have really, your comments are going to improve our report. Colleagues, I'm sure you have all listened to the DM's comments, and I would then request that the team, the support team, incorporates them into the report and then present the amended report at our next meeting for adoption. You see, the point he raised on number 8, for example, where we say the reduced defense allocation impacts negatively on the domestic industry. In fact, we can even put it in a positive way. These guys are now saying, as a result of the decline in the acquisition budget of the defense force, it has actually forced us, to find new markets, outside the country. So I'm saying that there's a positive, element. There's a positive element in the whole thing. And because it has actually forced some of them to go elsewhere, looking for market. But of course, some second tier, what you call industry firms, collapsed with the collapse of the Denel. I'm not too sure if there's somewhere where we relate to SANDF, Denel, and the industry in our document. I can't remember if I did pick that one up. You see, and you see, it's I don't know. Willem, did you take the notes? Did you hear what the DM has to say on this report?
Chair, yes, thank you very much, and thank you to the Deputy Minister as well for the valuable inputs. I did make notes on this side, and I will incorporate them into the new draft for members.
Okay. All right, colleagues, I think we can then move the draft has been presented. The second draft will be presented at our next meeting for adoption. Can we step off this item for now?
Yep, fantastic report. Otherwise, fantastic. Well done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, support team, for the good work. Can you then deal with the last report?
Thank you, Chair. I'll just share this one as well. Is it visible on your side, Chair?
Yep, it's visible on my side.
Okay, maybe. Oh, Chair, you're on mute.
This is a report arising from our visit to the African Aerospace and Defense Expo on the 23rd and 24th.
Yes.
Chair.
Yes, DM.
I'm sorry to interrupt the proceedings. I was just checking whether you still want us to remain in the room.
DM, I think we thank you very much for your contribution, because this is just a report on what we saw when we were there. And I think for the midterm, your contribution is valuable. Thank you that you were able to find time out of your busy schedule to join us. And you may take leave, DM, at any time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members.
Thank you so
much
for
the opportunity. Thank you.
DM, at least you now know when we debate this report in Parliament, you would have had at least a sight of it.
Indeed.
It will end up in Parliament, yeah. Thank you so much.
Indeed, thank you very much. Sure.
Okay, great. Right, colleagues, we might go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just a final word on the previous report presented. Thank you very much for the input from all the members. It's much appreciated. It was quite a strange report for me and Peter to draft. It's the first time that we do that report for this committee. And being a report to the houses, it's a bit different, and we really appreciate all the input and members taking time to actually work through the document. So thank you for that. Moving on, Chair and members, this is a very short report, but it's based on the visit of the committee to the African Aerospace and Defense Expo at Waterkloof Air Force Base. And I'll just go through some quick highlights, basically what the committee actually looked at issues around the state of the defense material, defense readiness and acquisition. That's why we attended this. It fits with the mandate of the committee and also viewing new defense related technologies. There's the attendance of the AAD, also staff members, and the program that was sent for the 2 days. And in this report, there's one or two of the smaller exhibitions where the committee passed quickly, which was where there were no in-depth discussions that wasn't included, but the major engagements we tried to capture shortly in this report. Firstly, there was the visit to Armscor, where a background was given of the AAD, and then Armscor also noted, it spoke about its role at the AAD, and Armscor notes that its focus at the 2022 ADD was to present its unique defense offerings to potential clients. And I think this came out in the annual report presentations to the PC yesterday as well, this focus of Armscor. Then there was also a brief discussion around maintenance contracts for the SA Air Force, specifically the Gripen fighter aircraft fleet. And Armscor then already noted to the committee that new maintenance contracts have been put in place, and that this is for at least 50% of the Gripen fleet. Secondly, the committee then moved over to the stand of the CSIR, and the CSIR explained its role, it explained its focus areas on defense, civil security, and cyber security, and it demonstrated a number of technology solutions. And one of this, for example, was the committee spent some time at the CSIR's radar program that has specific value for border safeguarding. It's a nice technological feature that they demonstrated of how it can be used in a border environment. The CSR also noted that it receives a research and development grant from the defense allocation, specifically for its defense research and development. So from there, the committee also attended the Hensoldt South Africa stand. Hensoldt is a 70% owned by the Hensoldt Group, which is listed on the German stock exchange, while the other 30% of the company is owned by Denel. They also emphasized that it is a South African-centered company with around 800 employees, of which only 2 are non-South African. That was in the background briefing, and the members spent some time going around the Hensoldt Optronic division, and they demonstrated a number of radars and long-distance cameras that are all very applicable, for example, to the border environment again, and other military functions as well. From there, members moved to Saab South Africa. There was a very short visit, just looking at the landward combat products that Saab develops. From there was a longer visit to the Denel stand. And around Denel, there was some discussions around Project Hoefyster with the new CEO of Denel. It was noted that Denel, Armscor, and the DoD have reassessed the feasibility of the production phase, that is phase 1 of Project Hoefyster, and there is broad agreement on the need to complete phase 1. So there was a lot of discussion around phase 1, and that is, according to all parties, seems to be feasible. And this was also repeated yesterday at the PC meeting by Armscor. Lastly, members also introduced to Denel Pretoria metal precincts that supplies ammunition to the SANDF and the broader South African market. It was noted, however, that not all services procure their ammunition from Denel PMP, and that further penetration of the domestic market is required. So that includes your state services. Then there was a visit to Ott Technologies, which is owned partly owned by the South African National Military Veterans Association, SAMBA. Ott Technologies demonstrated a number of field kitchens that they've supplied to the SANDF, and they also demonstrated their capability to refurbish the SANDF's existing Ratel infantry fighting vehicle fleet. That is one of their specialities, is building vehicles, and they've got this capacity to refurbish and modernize the current Ratel fleet. From there, the committee moved on to Milcor, and there was a lot of discussion at Milcor around the unmanned aerial vehicle of Milcor that they demonstrated at the AAD. It's a locally built and manufactured UAV with up to 35 hours flying time. And members at this exhibition noted the potential value of UAVs or similar systems to the SANDF, not only for its primary roles, but specifically for border patrolling and patrolling the South Africa's vast maritime territories. So based on these engagements, there's a number of observations that can be drawn from this, or potential observations that we'd like to put forward for members to input on. Firstly, the committee acknowledged the high level of defense technology that is still produced by South African defense companies. Secondly, members of the committee observed that most South African defense companies rely almost exclusively on exports to maintain their business models, largely due to subdued domestic demand from the SANDF. Third, the committee observed that South African companies are in need of broader government support for the industry. Of specific importance was the observation by some companies that delays in obtaining export permits from the Ncicc impacts negatively on their international competitiveness. Next, members noted that research and development funding as an outflow of the country's defense allocation has decreased significantly in recent years. Next, members observed that there is an array of domestically developed technology available that will assist in border safeguarding functions of the SANDF and other government departments. Members also referred to the need for a more coordinated approach to the broader security by the broader security cluster to procure defense and security related equipment from the local defense industry. Lastly, members mentioned the options offered for the refurbishment of the SA Army's Rattle infantry fighting vehicles fleet as a viable interim solution to maintain the SANDF's operational readiness in lieu of the completion of Project Hooface. So those are potential observations that members can input in to, perhaps just running through a few recommendations that stems from that. Based on the observations above, some recommendations that can follow. First, the committee encourages all departments within the security cluster to cooperate and synchronize its procurement of defense and security equipment as a means to maximize support to the domestic defense industry. Secondly, the committee encourages departments, in particular those in the security cluster, to utilize the acquisition services offered by Armscor, specifically as it relates to defense, security, and related equipment. Third recommendation is that the committee recommends the increased use of domestically developed technologies as a force multiplier for the SANDF's border safeguarding function, as a means to patrol the South Africa's coastline and territorial waters. To this extent, the committee recommends that the Portfolio Committee on Defence and Military Veterans engage the DoD and National Treasury to ensure adequate funding and allocation of this force multiplier. And I think this relates very strongly to yesterday's discussion at the end of the PC meeting, and members can also note this potential recommendation as it relates to next week's Joint Standing Committee on Defence meeting, which deals with border security. The fourth recommendation is the committee recommends enhanced engagement between the NCICC and the domestic defence industry to address concerns around delays in obtaining export permits. The committee undertakes to further engage with the NCICC, Ncicc, and other industry role players such as AMD and individual defence companies in this regard. Lastly, while cognizant of fiscal constraints, the committee recommends that the DoD continues to fund defence research and development initiatives as far as possible. There's one more recommendation. The committee recommends engagement between the DoD, Armscor, and National Treasury on a medium to long-term improvement of the SA Army's armament vehicle fleet. Further funding for Project Hooface beyond Phase 1 should be measured against the cost and advantages of an interim upgrade of the Rattle infantry fighting vehicle. The aim here, Chair and members, with this recommendation would not be to prescribe what the Department of Defense should do. It is just to engage thinking about Phase 2 of this project. While Phase 1 of Project Hooface does not solve the problem of the aging Rattle fleet. And there's a need to look beyond this, and perhaps if it's Parliament's and this committee's within the mandate of this committee to raise questions in this regard and request feedback on how this problem will be solved. Those are the proposed recommendations, Chair members. Lastly, we included just a word of gratitude to Armscor for the invitation and to the committee and for all the arrangements and assistance that they offered. So yes, that is it, Chair and members. Thank you very much. I will leave it over to you, Chair, for input from members, and we're happy to make any changes so you can make this report your own. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Willem, for this comprehensive report. Colleagues, are there any comments?
Chair, again from my side, so well drawn up a report, so comprehensive report. When I read through the report, I actually, experienced where we actually went each and every time. So, it's actually very, 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 very good. So just go up to 3 observations, Adam, again. I just wanted to see something quickly. Yeah. No, Chairperson, I personally cannot find fault with what happened. I think it's an absolute fair reflection of what we have experienced. Just on the last one that Valera mentioned there, about Hoefyster and the Ratel infantry. I think that fits also into what we have experienced at OTT Technologies, where Samba is a major shareholder, and what they have done with the Ratel infantry vehicles that they have in the past bought from the Defence Force on auctions, and how they have upgraded that to a version that is actually superior to what we have got, and where they have then sold it to Rwanda and other African countries, which is actually shows you what can be done, and even, you know, not that it is part of the recommendations, but I would even, you know, see us engaging in the future to see how OTT can play a role, given that we are also there to promote military veterans and their involvement. So thank you very much. It's a fantastic report. I support it 100%.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. And Mr. Raider?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and again, appreciation for the report. I do see that there was a stand that we visited on the Saturday. It was called DCD, Delta Charlie Delta. And I see that they're not included. Now, those were the guys that had that sand-filled barrier, and they had the Springbok vehicles, etc. They handed out some bags to us as well with booklets. I was wondering, was that not an official visit, or is it an oversight that they're not included? So that's the first question, Chair. And the second one is perhaps to build on Mr. Murray's comments, if I may, and say that overwhelmingly, as we visited these various sites, what we were being asked for, and it was almost we were being implored, was to facilitate engagements between the military and these manufacturers or suppliers. And, you know, I'm wondering what mechanism we can use to do that. And obviously, you know, we do have procurement regulations that need to be complied with. But the reality is we have these local operators in the military and the defense industry producing top quality, world-class or world-beating equipment. And yet they're struggling to get an ear. And I'm wondering if we can't find a way of including a recommendation, you know, and I'm not sure how to craft it, but to suggest that the Defence Force makes themselves more available to local defence industry players in order to, you know, understand what's available out there. And what the newest, latest changes are in the industry. We don't get stuck in a space where we are procuring, or we're trying to procure things when there's much better, more modern technology or locally produced technology available. I'm wondering how to craft that as a recommendation, Chair, and I'm thinking aloud.
You see, your recommendation, I like it. I mean, from what happened yesterday at the portfolio committee level, money for technology as a force multiplier being used for something else. You know, it says to me, maybe some, you know, people in the leadership of the SANDF having embraced technology as, you know, a force multiplier in the work that they are actually doing. In fact, they do, but I don't know whether it's a lack of appreciation that there's even more in the industry. But there again, coming back to your point, is it AMSCO interface is a middleman, and but the extent to which AMSCO come back to the department and say, look, this is what is available in the market, and I don't know that conversation between the two, because I mean, with AMSCO, it's part of was a co-host of the exhibition, so they know what is available, you know. But whether the SANDF, especially the leadership, is at the same level of understanding and the appreciation of what is available in the domestic market and so on, I'm not quite certain. I don't know to what extent AMSCO involves them into the solutions that are available, or it simply says no. Yours is to stay there, and I will relate to the industry on your behalf. I don't know. Maybe someone may actually assist, because I think, in my view, it doesn't help. You need to expose the leadership to what is available, so that they are aware of what can actually help them to enhance their capability. And Mr. Murray, you wanted to say something?
No, sir. Is my hand still up? Oh, sorry. I was still at old end.
Yes. All right. Okay. So it's fine. Just say how Willem, you may want to comment on this one. And is it AMSCO that must be central in this, or AMSCO must at some point expose the leadership to the modern technology that is available? But if we say that, it assumes that they are not being exposed. It's just that I don't know what is the relationship between AMSCO and the leadership of the Defense Force when it comes to this. And maybe there is someone on the platform who may actually assist us, who may have some knowledge of the procurement processes within the SANDF. Motum is one of them. I'm sure he would comment if he thinks he could be of assistance on this one. Right, Willem?
Chair, yeah, there might well be someone with more in-depth knowledge. The way I understand it is that normally the Department of Defense would identify areas where it requires specific technology, and then they would approach AMSCO to find that technology to fill a particular gap for them. So I think it's a bit of a two-way street, as yourself and Mr. Ryder have noticed. There's definitely a need for the Defence Force to familiarize themselves and to be aware of what is available in the domestic market. They might, through that process, just realize that there is a gap in their equipment or in a certain space. So if perhaps we can draft something like this, that the committee just encourages the DoD to engage more regularly with the domestic defense industry and to continuously familiarize themselves with domestically produced defense equipment. I don't know if that fully addresses what you raised.
I think it's broad enough.
Yeah.
To cover even AMSCO as well. Motum, you want to say something?
Yes, Chair. No, thanks and prompting and through you, Chair.
Okay.
With every project, it's normally, even if AMSCO runs it, it's normally joint project teams. Joint in the sense that AMSCO is there, they would be running it, but the end user, which in this case is the Defense Force, would then be integrally part of that. So you have a project officer on a project of the Air Force or of the Navy or of the Army, or even of the military health service, who's part and parcel of that project until from beginning right until the end, when the project is finalized. And finalized means the project is accepted by the end user, it then gets commissioned, and then it gets put into service. But I concede the point that the chair you've made and the committee, that I think there does need to be improvement in that whole process, so that the warning bells are rung at the appropriate moment when things are now going southward, as has happened now. We've had with the Easter and other projects. Thanks, Chair.
No. Thank you very much. Who developed the specifications? Is it the SANDF procurement team together with AMSCO, or is that team saying, AMSCO, this is what we want? Go and source it from the market?
The latter, sir, the latter, because Army, for instance, the Army or the Air Force, who is the client, will determine, and they will give the specs to ARMSCOR and say, this is what we want. This is the details of the product or the service that we want. So now go out and source and get quotes and et cetera, et cetera. You will recall that's why with Hoefyster, where ARMSCOR has reported to us and say they have to go back to the client, and the client in that regard is South African Army, and then the South African Army must go through that process of the screening committee, and then the other committee, and then obviously it must go to Treasury for funding, and obviously those kind of things. But the specifications is determined by the client, which is either the Army or the Air Force or the Navy or the intelligence service, in that regard.
Okay.
I hope that helps.
But they will then work, they will then come together in a form of a steering committee to then drive the process until the final stage
Yes.
of the acquisition process. All right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. No, it's fine. Thanks, Motumi, for this insight information. All right, colleagues. So this we can adopt it today. Is any?
I so propose.
It's most moved, and any seconder?
I second, Chair.
Ms. Kosi seconds, so it's adopted. Thank you so much. And all right, and then we now have to deal with the minutes, isn't it?
Yes, Chair.
How many sets?
2 sets, Chair.
2 sets. Okay, let's deal with the first one. Colleagues, these are the minutes, the attendance record. It was a briefing on the appointment of the Reserve Force and the Chief of the Defense Force, and the briefing by the Defense in response to this. But just before we move off, before we go down the minutes, we were promised that the chief would be appointed within that week. Has that happened, Mutumi? What is the latest on this one?
Chair and members, DM, yes, there was appointment of the new chair of the Defense Reserve.
Oh, is it? Has that been made public?
I'm not sure about it being made public, but there was.
Maybe still within the processes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. You may go ahead. Colleagues, we're looking for corrections on page paragraph 4, Mapanywa. Okay, just continue with the Mapanywa.
Chairperson.
Yes, sir.
Mothapo,
yes.
Mothapo, Chairperson, thank you so much.
Yes,
Yes, Chairperson, good evening all colleagues. My name is not appearing in attendance, and apologies. And on inquiry, Nandipa said that is because I was struggling to connect. So with your indulgence, how do we locate that? Because it will appear as if I'm very much irresponsible if my name is not appearing in any of the 2 for the 8th meeting.
Okay, so, you were struggling to connect, eh?
Yes, that's what Nandipa said, yes, on the 8th.
Okay.
I had connectivity challenges.
But did you finally join the meeting?
I can't recall, but it should be located somewhere.
No, but you should know whether you were in the meeting or not.
Chairperson, if I may come in, Chair.
Yes.
Ms. Mutapo never joined the meeting. She asked me during the meeting to send her the link again. And then I sent her, and then she said she can't use that link, she can't get into the meeting. So I also didn't know where to put it, Chair.
Yes, so that's a problem. The question is, after all the challenges, did you succeed to join the meeting or not? You would know
No,
it better.
But Chairperson, I don't know whether you understand what I'm saying. It was because of load shedding and connectivity challenges, and I was trying to connect, but to no avail. So and I communicated to Nandipa.
So you wanted to register it under apologies, eh?
Yes, it's apology, yes.
Okay, let's
Because
record
it is circumstances
let's-
beyond my control.
Let's record it as an apology. She wanted
Yes.
to attend the meeting, but due to some connectivity challenges, she ended up not being able to attend it.
Okay, Chair, I will put it in, Chair.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And that happens. Okay, no, we're dealing with the minutes of the 8th of September. And then continue to the second page. Second page, sorry, Mapanya on the paragraph 4, no, paragraph 4. Just go down. Mapanya, this paragraph 4, the first paragraph there is General Mapanya. Please correct. Can you see it? Nandipa?
Yes, Chair, I can see, Chair. I will correct it, Chairperson.
Correct it, okay. Right, and continue to the next page. Right, continue. Any other correction? Continue. Last page. Colleagues, are there any further corrections to make? There being none, do we accept the minutes as a true record?
I so
So,
propose.
the mover, Mr. Mare moves, seconded by?
I second, Chair. I second
Seconded
Honorable Bartlett.
by Ms. Bartlett.
Bartlett.
With the correction made, Chair.
Yes, with the correction made that Ms. Mutapo's name will appear under apologies. Okay, let's move to the second set. A meeting of the 18th or 15th of September, right? Where on the attendance, is there any issue on the attendance? No issue. Let's go to page 2. Continue. Just before, and let's look at the committee resolutions. The committee noted with concern that due to refurbishment delays, the DOST is still outsourcing a number of healthcare activities to private healthcare providers at a high cost to the department. The committee noted that the DOD has signed off on the ramp at 2 military hospitals in Cape Town, but also noted that the total facility management service remains unimplemented. I can't remember this. Maybe on this TM, this total facility management service remaining unimplemented. I can't remember what was the issue there. Can you recall, colleagues?
Chair, if I can recall correctly, and maybe Willem or Nandipa or Peter can enlighten us, I think it was purely because there was not enough resources to fill the posts and to make use of, for instance, the ICU, the VVIP section, and other resources, amongst others, funding. I think that is what it refers to. But they can probably help us further in that regard. But I think that is what it's about.
That's what it meant to suggest. Eh? All right.
Yeah.
And any comment? And let's go back to the resolutions a bit. Let's sharpen them up. And okay, the DOD noted that the DOD has signed off on the ramp to military. Town. Isn't that they said there was no issue with the two military hospital?
I know that the only issue that I can recall is about the resourcing and the populating of the posts, and obviously the funding. That's all that I can recall. That was the challenges that was hindering specifically to military hospital.
Maybe let's put a full stop instead of a comma there, and then delete the part starting with "but also noted." Are we together, Nandip?
I don't think we must delete it, sir, because that is very, very important. And I think that is what we noted at that stage, because the implementation of that is, I think, what the Surgeon General wants. He wants that to be done. Otherwise, there's no support. And it's only because of that we can actually argue, in my opinion, and motivate why that should be resourced for the implementation.
Why I'm saying this, Mr. Murray, is because we are going to have a meeting dedicated to the SAMs and all the facilities under SAMs.
Yeah, no problem, but it doesn't take away.
Yes,
it doesn't take away from what we have observed.
Chair? Chair, can I come in?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chair, the way I understand it with regards to the project at the two military hospitals, what General Ladwaba was saying, that most of the work has been done, but that two military hospitals actually need this total facility management. But currently it's being unfunded. So they are looking into it and to implement it in the same way as they did at one military hospital, Chair. So I think that recommendation just needs to be tweaked there, Chair.
No, but
what General Dwaba has said.
No, but if the ramp project is complete and they've signed it off, and what they need the total facility management service for?
Because that's for the continuing repair and maintenance, Chair.
Or for the continued?
Yes.
All right.
But the point he was making is it's unfunded.
Maybe, but we can say, but also noted the need for the total facility management services.
Yeah, something in that regard, but that we, the wording, Peter and Willem can tweet.
Okay.
But that was what was reported.
All right. No, I'm saying it must also make sense to us as well, because in the end we must implement the solution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then committee resolved to have a meeting with senior management of SAMS on first and two military hospital challenges, challenges that hinder provision of service. Okay. And the committee noted with concern that the Defense Force does not take any disciplinary measures against military staff, but seems to refer matters to the police. Okay. The committee urged the minister and the chief of the SANDF to ensure adequate consequence management is implemented. Okay. The committee further resolved not to postpone further discussion. The committee resolved not to postpone further discussion and adoption of the draft midterm review report presented by the content advisor, and to schedule a meeting in the fourth quarter to further consider the report, allowing more time to apply the command. Okay, right?
That word "not" should probably come out, because we have resolved to postpone it for further discussion and adoption.
I thought so too.
So the word, so the word "not" must come out.
Yeah.
Because we have now.
All right. So with these amendments, is it Mr. Rader, sorry.
No, Chair, that was a thumbs up to agree that the "not" must come out. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, I'm muted, colleagues. I'm muted. Mr. Ryder is moved for adoption. Any seconder?
Mutapo, with those amendments.
I second, Honorable Butler.
Yes, and the document, Mutapo is seconded the document as amended. Thank you very much, colleagues. And I think we have now come to the end of the meeting. Is there any other item that I'm overlooking, Nandipa?
No, Chair, we're done, Chair. Thank you.
Done. All right. Colleagues, thank you very much for your time. Let me also thank the staff from the department that's still part of this meeting. The meeting stands adjourned. Paul Lechoro, please send me your cell number, please.
Thank you, Chair. Night.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.